Afternoon, everyone. For those who are just joining, welcome to the Female Leaders Club stage. Nice to have you. Thank you for bearing with us in the heat. I think this is actually one of the cooler spots, so feel free to stay all day. We've got lots coming up. So this is actually our final talk before lunch. So we break for lunch 1 to 2:15, and then we're back at 2:15 with Sally Henderson, who is fantastic. But our last talk is around creative confidence. And the fact that it's a business strategy and it starts with varying what's been overlooked. So Senta Slingerland, co-founder of Fala, is going to argue that creative confidence isn't a soft skill, it's a business imperative. So welcome to the stage.
Thanks. Can you hear me okay? I don't hear, no, you hear me okay, fine. Hi, thanks for turning up on the hottest day of the year. Nice to see you. My name is Senta Slingerland, and ex-colleague, I run a company called Fala with my co-founder Alison, who is somewhere in the room as well. And Fala essentially teaches brands to work on their creative confidence in the belief that it makes them more strategic and it makes them more relevant. And it's a bit weird for me to do a talk with the word strategy in the title in a way, because although I had the word in my job title for years, I was the director of brand strategy for a major advertising festival called the Cannes Lions. I was always made to believe, or maybe I made myself believe that I wasn't really all that strategic, that I was ambitious, sure, and I had ideas, and I made them happen, but strategic maybe not that much. I was made to believe, maybe by myself, that I led really with my heart and maybe not always with my head. But then as I went through life and had different jobs and met different people and worked with very inspiring, smart people, I started to sort of redefine what being strategic means and re-diagnose myself and realize that I am really quite strategic. So today I want to talk a little bit about what being strategic means, why creative confidence is so important for being strategic, and how you build and nurture that. So, what's creative confidence anyway? To me, it's just the belief that you know that you can generate ideas and that you can action them. And belief is important because it's sort of like knowing, but it's not the same as knowing. Belief is something that you can't see yet, but you know that if you take a certain path, you will get there. But it's not the same as knowing, because when you're working on a creative project, you're working with a client, you don't know anything, right, in the beginning, and it's sort of that moment where you don't really know anything that I think is very fertile ground. To build this creative confidence, I believe that there's 3 values that are very important and that have really been undervalued in society, but mostly in the world of work. And they are curiosity, openness, and duality. And I'll go into them a little bit more. So I believe that creative confidence requires curiosity, and I think it's one of the most important values in business today. Like I said, that have been really undervalued. And curiosity, to me, it's just, again, the belief that everything you see is worth seeing. That any path you take will eventually lead somewhere before really knowing where it might take you. And it takes some guts to go through life curious in that way. I love this quote from Neil deGrasse Tyson, the astrophysicist, who says, creativity is seeing what everybody else sees, but combining it in ways that no one's ever seen before. And he uses the word see a lot. And I relate to that, because I think, again, being curious, it's all about seeing and just believing that what you're seeing will eventually one day make sense to you and will give you the tools to combine in a way that you can create something that's never been seen before. There's 2 types of creativity, really, broadly. There's the epistemic, which is really the desire to know and to know where things come from and to gain more knowledge. And then is the perceptual curiosity, which is more the instinct to sort of really go with your senses and figure out what they mean and what they're telling you, investigate your senses. And I think the second part of curiosity, this perceptual curiosity, is the most powerful, also the most undervalued, and the one that is the hardest to go with, because when you follow that curiosity, It doesn't have this immediate ROI. It's not seeable, but it shows, like, it makes you realize that you're seeing stuff before it's even a thing. You know, it's that thing where you know something is something, but you don't know what it is yet. And I think that's a very powerful thing that, I hate to say it, I feel like women especially have that skill a lot. Lots of people do, but that's why I thought it very important to talk a lot about that today. Essentially, curiosity teaches you empathy and teaches you to trust your instinct. And I know in business we talk a lot these days about being human and empathy is important and all of that, but I don't think it's something that you just teach somebody in a classroom to be empathetic. It's something that is fueled by curiosity. The more you see, the more you understand, the more you can have empathy. And the more you see and the more you have an arsenal of information behind you, the more you can trust your instinct. Luckily, curiosity is something that you can practice as a person, as a company. There's two little things I wanted to talk to you about, how I have practiced curiosity in the past that have made me very happy and that have informed what I do for a living. One is this project that I did in COVID. You know, we were all locked up. You know, we weren't really meeting any new people. And myself and two friends, one based in LA and one in Belgium, started this document called Today I Learned. And very simply, it was just every day by 5 p.m. our respective time, we would put something in there that we didn't know the day before. It could be like, you know, I didn't know whales couldn't swallow, whatever. It could be anything in the world. And so we posted that, and then we would learn each other's learnings. We would comment on it. And in the beginning, it was just sort of like this fun thing we did because we were a bit bored. But we did it for a year, and it really helped me just wake up differently. And the whole day, I was focused on, what am I learning today? It's almost 5 o'clock. I have to have something. It just shifted my lens completely for what I was looking at. And that's informed later what, as Fala, we do for some clients as well, this sort of, this realization that the lens you take throughout the day and how you see things can really inform how you learn. A friend of mine, years ago, she did this project called A New Friend a Day, and she committed to herself that for an entire year, she would go out every day and make one new friend. And, you know, it sounds a bit cheesy and sort of very Instagrammy, but it really shifted, again, how she makes networks, how she connects with people. She did a TED Talk around it and inspired lots of other things in her life. But it's that same curiosity for people that led her to do that project. So you can practice curiosity, obviously, in lots of different ways. But there's also a need to reward it, especially in business. You know, people that are very curious are not always rewarded for that. It's like, you know, when you're a child already, people are like, stop asking questions, you know, stop fiddling with that box or whatever it is. And sometimes in business, it's the same. You know, those colleagues that you have that are just always like trying to open things up more instead of closing them. And so curiosity is not always rewarded. And some companies do it well, and we work with Fala, we work with a client out of Norway. They are a B2B company. They sell fertilizer. You know, they're not very creative. They admit themselves that they don't really have like sort of a benchmark for creative excellence, but they do reward curiosity in their culture really well, and we help them with that. So, for example, we have a thing that we do for them where every week we give them 5 stories of things that brands or companies or institutions are doing throughout the world that they might not know about, that is totally out of their sector, that they might not have come across. And then we have a year-long program of masterclasses and such. And the more the employees of Yara engage with that content, comment, share, watch, the more points they get, the higher their likeliness of having a bonus and a pay rise. So they really literally get financially rewarded for their curiosity, which I think is really interesting. And they kind of make curiosity a business imperative. There's lots of companies that do this quite well. 3M, for example, they have this thing called the 15% culture. So every employee can spend 15% of their time on a curiosity project, delving into something that they are passionate about. Google used to do this, right? Everyone used to know that, like the 20%, I don't think they do that anymore. But there's lots of companies that do this pretty well. One of our clients as well is Riachuelo. It's a huge fashion retailer from Brazil. I use them as an example because they're this like legacy, old, like sort of popular brand. But curiosity is such a big value for them. Everyone that works at Riachuelo, whether you're a receptionist or a lawyer or whatever, gets to go to the farms where their cotton is made, and they visit the labs where all the clothes are sewed and embroidered. And they don't just spend like a couple hours there; they spend a week in the north of Brazil. They get to see how the cotton grows. It's really this really big time investment and financial investment into making everyone that works there very curious about where every bit of the company comes from. But they also do stuff with us. For example, they do these city exploration trips where they go outside of Brazil, and they only sell really in Brazil. So they go outside of Brazil. They went to Berlin, to London, and they just explore. And they explore things that are like out of their sector completely as well. We took them to immersive theater and all sorts of things, because they have this strong belief and knowledge that whatever they see will serve them at some point, even if they can't see where it's taking them right now. So I think that's very inspiring. So that leads me to the second point. First was curiosity, which is openness. If you're going to be curious like that, and you're going to get on a plane from Brazil and go to London and go to immersive theater, it requires some kind of openness, an open mind. There's a few things in that openness that I think are important. One is, as a person as well as a brand, to share what you know, but also what you don't know. I'm the kind of person who is quite free with like my contacts and knowledge. You know, when somebody's like, "Can you introduce me to so and so?" or "Do you have an idea?" And sometimes I've heard people say, "Oh, you should monetize that," or "You should be more protective of that." And I've just never believed that. I always think it comes back. It's just who I am. But some brands are really, really good at that as well. Oatly, for example, they have this, I don't know if anyone's ever seen it, but it's very funny. It's a website called Fuck Oatly, and they gather all of the controversies around their brand in a website. They publish everything that anyone's ever said about them, and then they debunk it, or they comment on it, or they might say, "That's actually not correct," or "We're working on that," or "Thank you for pointing that out," or whatever it might be. And some are actual court cases, so they go quite deep into it, and they open up everything, the things they know, the things they're figuring out, and the things they don't know yet. I think that's a very, very brave move. And then calling it Fuck Oatly is just very funny. But Unilever did this as well. In 2021, they published the Climate Transition Action Plan, which was basically their roadmap for getting to like net zero carbon by 2039. And they published it, did an update to it. But what they did is they published it, and instead of saying this is the roadmap, enjoy, they invited NGOs, investors, and the public to critique it, find holes in it, and then suggest suggestions for making it better and for collaboration. So it was really this very sort of brave move to say, hey, this is what we know, and here is a whole bunch of stuff that we haven't figured out yet, but we're on the go. And of course, you know, it makes you trust that brand more. One of my favorite versions of this is you know, Tony's, the yummy chocolate bars. Tony's Chocolonely's, they have an open chain initiative. So essentially what it is they publish all of their sustainability initiatives and roadmap, and then all sorts of tools to teach other chocolate brands or other food brands to use their knowledge and to go on the path with them to create, you know, to accomplish their mission, which is a child labor and slave free, trade-free chocolate industry. So they use all of the knowledge they have to teach other companies to do it as well, but in the knowledge that they are the ones that, you know, were the sort of the pioneers of it all. That leads me to this importance, I think, for letting outside voices in. I think a lot of brands kind of think that they do this pretty well. They have workshops, they get different people from different departments in to lead, you know, prototyping sprints and that kind of thing. But there's not many companies that take the time and the investment to have complete outside voices bring in. One little example of that is the Koffiejongens. It's a Dutch, I'm sticking with the Dutch trend here, the Dutch coffee brand. And they launched a board of little directors. So they brought in a group of 8 to 12-year-olds to meet every couple of months and help them with their sustainability thinking. And it's very smart because that audience is their future audience, right? And it's very marketable, of course. There is also a company that I used to work for called Mesa, which is a company born in Brazil but then is now international. And essentially what they do is exactly that. They solve problems for clients by bringing in lots of outside voices, lock them up in a room, sit them around a table, and a prototype comes out. And it can be anything from a chef that knows about medicinal plants from the Amazon. It can be a famous director. It can be a fashion blogger from Sweden. It can be anyone that they deem necessary, that has the right pillar of knowledge to solve that particular problem. And what is cool about them is that they've open sourced their methodology. So at Fala, for example, I use their methodology a lot to organize workshop or thinking sprints or doing sprints for clients as well. And it's cool about them is that they do, and we now do that too, and so do many companies, they don't just think of cool people that can help, they really think of pillars of knowledge. So when you then bring people together around the table, everyone knows the pillar of knowledge that they represent, so there is no hierarchy anymore around the table because you know you're responsible for that outside knowledge that the company doesn't have. That brings me to exploring the periphery. You know, your customers live outside of your product, and so should you. And there's companies that, again, do this well. There's an example from McDonald's that I like. They have this restaurant in Budapest, in Ugati, and they made it into a club. So it's open from 10 to 4 a.m., and they serve gourmet McDonald's food to their customers. And they've just taken what they believe their customers like and just explored it into a different sector, really, a different product type, but it's still within the whole McDonald's family. One client that we work with, I think is very inspiring, is called Northwell Health. It's like the biggest health provider in the New York State in the US. And what they've done is they realized that education is a big part of what they should be doing as a health company, not just curing, but also prevention. So they built a studio. They work together with Netflix, HBO, and the likes, and they make educational and entertaining content. So they make documentaries, they make docu-series. They have one called Lennox Hill. It's won a bunch of Emmys. It's on Netflix. It's a very popular sort of, hospital show. But they do it in the belief that it's important to educate their patients. And what I thought initially was interesting when I chatted to them about it was that I was thinking, so you're teaching your future clients not to get sick, but that's not going to help you sell more healthcare. It's interesting, that belief of you want to prevent, but you make your money from curing. So it was a really interesting conversation we had, but they obviously believe that as part of their mission, and it's given them a huge amount of brand equity and trust. And the most important thing with a healthcare provider is that you trust them, right? So that's what they do that. But I love that they were specialists in healthcare, and they've become specialists in entertainment and studio world, and that's a completely different sector, but with the belief that it serves the same mission. I'm very jealous of your flappy thing. That's very good. I wish I had one. And then, lastly, I want to talk about something that is the hardest of all of this, I believe, and that is duality. It's the skill you have for living in gray space. Like these days, the world is so divided, and we have all this political unrest and societal, disbalance. And people have a strong desire to belong to something. And so when the world's black and white, it becomes easy to choose where you're going to belong, And especially online, you have like 0.whatever seconds to make an impact. So being black and white really helps when you have one image to show what you stand for, what you believe. Brands are also really pushed hard into making a stand for things. And when they don't, there's lots of backlash. But the world simply is not black and white. And it's really hard to sit comfortably in that gray space. But I believe that it's the grey space that is the most fertile ground for growth, and it's in that grey space that you will see the learnings and that you will find the truth and the solutions. Having the skill to have two opposing truths sit within you quite comfortably is a skill that we are simply not teaching kids, people, or employees. And I think it's fueled by that curiosity and by that openness. But that takes a value shift. And I think that value shift starts with you. It's about realizing that in yourself, valuing that in yourself and not judging it, and then valuing it in the people around you and keeping that in mind when you go into your work mode. Thank you very much. Hi. I kept it short. I thought people were hot.
Does anyone have any questions they didn't want to put on the app but might want to ask now because we have a little bit of time? Don't be shy.
Come on,
Oh,
Piotr.
there's one over there.
Oh.
Just someone's going to bring you a mic, actually. It might make your life a bit easier.
Stop shouting. Hi, really enjoyed the talk. Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
In this chaotic world where we're being bombarded left, right and centre with information, where do you find your best sources of curiosity? What piques your interest?
It's a complex question because the answer is everywhere. I mean, it's also, I make sure that I don't overwhelm myself. I'm not one of those, like, read everything I can, watch the news, But it's going into things where, like, sounds cheesy, but like your stomach tells you that there might be something there. And I think we need to, and sometimes that's what I said at the beginning, we might feel that there's no ROI in that particular route. But I think if you're honest with yourself, you know that there might be. And, I think as well, like, creative people are remunerated, are paid for not just the hours that they spent on a project, but everything from birth, like every film they ever saw, every path they ever took. So I keep that in mind, and then I go with what my gut tells me might be interesting. It's lots of conversations, because sometimes I feel like when I'm alone, like I get too distracted, but when I talk things out with people, that's when I get focused, and I make a conscious effort to do things like that learning. Today I learned projects or things like that, and to go with things that maybe I wouldn't normally do. And sometimes it's battling like with laziness a little bit, and that's fine as well. But it's just having that lens during the day of like. Maybe this is going to take me somewhere that is going to become useful, like in 5 years, but I don't know it now, I hope that kind of answers you.
I've opened the floodgates. This is amazing. Okay. You put your lady in the pink dress, and then I'll come to you, sir, and then I'll go up to you.
Hello, thank you.
Hi.
Loads of great
Yeah.
insight, really valuable. I'd really love to know if you've got any tips for how we practically apply what you've described as those sort of tips for staying curious in a world where we're obviously busy, but just I find companies are just being asked to do more with less.
Yeah.
So in that context, I definitely value all these things. I see them show up in female leaders all the time, but I don't feel we're being given the space. I'd love for you to be able to challenge what tips we can hold on to maintain creativity and spaces, to not just be cutting, doing less, doing more with AI and so on. So any tips?
Yeah, well, I believe that if you leave it up to just the individual people, it's not fair, because we're so inundated with emails and all that kind of stuff. Like you said, we're so busy already. If it's then sort of your personal remit to also work on that curiosity, it feels unfair, especially considering how important it is for your strategic vision and skills. So I think it really needs to become a business sort of imperative and part of the culture. So we work with a few clients that we started doing that really small. Maybe it's like an hour a month that they dedicate to that. But it's sort of they have, like I showed you the example from Yara, that people actually get remunerated financially for engaging with their but it came from the company itself. Sometimes when we work with clients, it takes a long time for the lead up to talk to them from day one, where we talk to them about the importance of this, to actually doing a project with them, because they just need to be taken on that journey of, ultimately it's going to raise the bottom line, it's going to do it that way. So, but I do think that when it comes to work world, that it needs to come from within the company culture. And, we have sort of business cases to, show people the importance of that. But yeah, and I mean, if, you just told me about how time is tight, right? But there is certain things you can do within to help the culture. So little projects that I told you, for example, that Today I Learned, or City, whatever it might be, you could do that with a small group. Because I always feel like whenever you want to make something happen within a company, you need to create like a mini company in your company that does that, and then people get attracted to it, and then you can build that out.
Hello.
Hi, Frate.
Edward, hello. I loved your presentation, and I also love that you haven't mentioned the word AI. But I'm just gonna ask this question. Do you
Yeah.
believe that AI helps us to be more creative, or it's a threat to, that creative confidence and curiosity?
Yeah. The non-strategic center answer, like, not as in me as a company saying like what I really feel is that it, at the moment, depends on who you are. Like, I feel that some people have jumped so far that their whole life is run by that, and you might be at risk of losing that curiosity a bit. For me personally, I use it to enhance this curiosity, especially the bit of like learning more, not so much the census part, but it's just so fast, right? Anything you want to know in your pocket. So for me, it enhances that curiosity. But the second part, the perceptual curiosity, which I think is so important, especially because it's so undervalued, at the moment doesn't really help you with. And that's the sort of go out in the world, reading somebody's face, being curious about what they mean. That side of it, I feel, doesn't help. But I wouldn't go as far as saying it's going to kill that. It depends a little bit on your own boundaries and how you present yourself in the world. But with the first part, of course. I mean, it's just so fast. And when you're a curious person, you want to know things fast. So I think it really helps with that. And I'm curious to see how people are going to use that. I worry a little bit about people that rely on it too much right now to find all of their information, because of that thing I said about sometimes this bit of information with this information that doesn't seem to be connected at all later turns out to be a perfect match. And I'm not sure AI is doing that yet,
I think we've got one just down there. Kelly. There we go. Question there, and then, so the man in the white t-shirt there, and then someone at the back I can see. Thank you. And then we'll finish.
Hi, absolutely loved your talk. I'm hugely passionate about curiosity. It's something I've been working on for the last 3 years. I'd love to talk to you more about it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know, you talk brilliantly about keeping your eyes open to new experiences and joining those dots up, even when you think that may not happen. What has been one of those key successes where you've suddenly gone, oh my God, you and you should sit down together and talk, and how has that manifested? Like one of your personal favourites. I have lots of my own that happen, and I think it'd be lovely to hear from you.
Ooh, that's such a good question. It's that kind of question that I'll be home later and I'll be like, oh, I should have told him that one. Not sure, but there's one that I'm thinking of now, is that we also run this thing called Mentor at Home, which is an online platform, an online experience really that we do every 2 weeks, and we just invite a bunch of people, mentors and mentees, and we do like speed dating. We're actually doing an in real life experience later this afternoon here, but we do that online every couple of weeks. And it's that thing where we then match people, right? Mentors and mentees. And it's just to give exactly that to people. It's like there's no agenda. It's just sort of, I think you might want to meet that person. Maybe you'll have a terrible 20 minutes of conversation. Maybe it's wonderful. Maybe you'll end up launching a business together, kind of thing. But it's using your gut to see who you think might match. And from that, lots of very cool things have happened. And some people that have started working together on all sorts of things that I've actually never met, and it's all started from 20 minutes online. And it's that thing of you might think that you don't have the time for that, but it's 20 minutes that changes your life. And it's the lady that just asked me about the time constraints and stuff. It's just you just have to really believe that those little time investments will serve you later. But I think from there, I've seen very cool connections and stories. Yeah.
I think got one last one just there. Thank you before we finish.
Hello,
Penny?
hi.
There you go.
The last element of it, the duality element of it, I think I often try and move things as quickly out of the grey space into into a black or white space as I can. I feel like that's where some of our ideas come from. But can you give any examples of the grey space and how you use that and any techniques that you have to bring that to life?
Yes. In the simplest form, I'm thinking about being in a work environment where you need to make decisions, and they're often about things that have an emotional trigger somehow. I would never do that. I hate that person. These kind of things. And with the time constraints we have, it's just so attractive to go down that route. But I know this particular lady that I've worked with in the past who has really taught me not to jump in that black and white pool. And in meetings, but also sometimes when she's interviewed on stages and stuff, she will sit, and she makes a point of it now because she's like, screw it, I can do that. She will sit and literally just go and not say anything. And when you're in the room, it's so uncomfortable, even though it's 45 seconds. But it's become a thing that I've really tried to adapt, because even if you don't actually need that second, you need to teach everyone around you that it's okay to hold. That's when she's in the gray space in that moment, because she's like, let me think. So it can be even small things like that. You really set an example to people around you that that's okay, especially when you're maybe a person of some power in a company or something. So that I've adopted, for example, when I have the guts, because I don't always. Yeah, that would be an example. Sorry, one more thing. Also about when it comes to Me Too and all of that, like the last few years, cancel culture and everything. That's a particularly attractive moment to jump into black and white as well. I'm not saying that's wrong or you shouldn't, but again, when you have some power or responsibility in a company, it's really a kind of a beautiful example to set, to even for those things hold some gray space and teach others to do that, because you're talking about people's lives, so yeah.
So can we just give a big round of applause? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.